Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Alec Wright, and I'm the Chief Innovation Officer of One Valley. And it's a pleasure to have you all here for our conversation this afternoon, incorporating Canada, why it's right for your startup. And our goal with today's conversation in this webinar is to really kind of dive deep into the Canadian startup ecosystem and how it's evolved and changed over the past couple of years, and really become one of the preeminent markets for high impact, fast growth technology startups that are emerging globally. And we have we have the honor of hosting this webinar in partnership with the Toronto Business Development Center, which is one of the premier startup accelerators and landing pads for entrepreneurs from across the globe that are looking to access the Canadian market. But before we get going, I'd love to just share a little bit about One Valley. One Valley is an online provider of startup resources, ecosystems, and communities. And we do this through Passport, which is the world's most comprehensive startup ecosystem platform with tens of thousands of members, hundreds of amazing mentors from across the globe, a global early stage investor community of angels, VCs, corporate VCs, everything in between, and over $1 million of discounted tech tools and services that every startup needs to grow their business. And as we mentioned, it's kind of every tool from cloud to payment processing, data analytics, CRM. And so our goal with Passport is to give every entrepreneur the tools, the mentorship, the community, and the learning resources they need to be successful. Today, you will get the opportunity to hear from Amr, the CEO of Nerve Technologies, which is an unbelievable early stage technology startup emerging from Canada. We'll also hear from Neha Ball, CEO and President of the Toronto Business Development Center, where she'll share a bunch of information about their startup visa program, which connects global founders from around the world with everything they need to launch their business in Canada and actually help set them up to do that. But to really get us started, it's my pleasure to welcome Amr, CEO of Nerve Technologies, to our virtual stage. Hey, Amr, it's great to have you here, and thanks again. Really looking forward to learning a little bit more about your experience building and launching a technology startup in Canada. So maybe, do you mind kicking us off with just a little bit about your background, your journey, and what brought you and the team to Nerve?
For sure. Thanks a lot for having me here today, Alec, and the rest of the team. Can't believe it's been almost just over a year and a half since we first met. Time is really flying by. And I can't believe that it's been almost 7 years since we first launched Nerve. So the story of Nerve actually began when Yusuf, my co-founder, and I came across a problem that was introduced to Yusuf through his own mother, who is a surgeon. Yusuf growing up was always hearing about horror stories from his mom's line of business, where she works as a surgeon, as someone who faces difficulties every day when she's working with patients and monitoring them post-operatively. She would always be concerned about them and their recovery. She wouldn't be too sure if they're recovering well or if they're potentially suffering from a complication that everyone's really blind to. And unfortunately, she would say that sometimes it would take a matter of a few days before some of these complications are detected. And during that time frame, unfortunately, we would lose tens of thousands of lives every year. So as Yusuf started hearing the story and being the engineer he is, thinking that he can solve anything out there, he told her, well, I believe I might be able to solve this problem for you, given our backgrounds in nano engineering and our internships developing biosensors. So Yusuf at the time comes to me, he tells me about this story. At the time, I was in my third year of undergrad, had one more year to go to graduate. And third year is probably one of the most difficult years of undergrad for us. So I told him, you know what the hell, what do I have to lose but my degree? Let's get started on this. And I guess that's how the story began. That's how the journey began. We've managed to rally up a really strong team behind us over the years. We've raised our seed round. We are a clinical stage company right now, very close to commercializing this technology, and we're really excited to what's coming next.
No, amazing, and it's incredible to think about how far you've come over this time, and it's really exciting that you're at this really powerful inflection point for the next stage, both of nerve, but also kind of the new frontier of postoperative care that hopefully us and our families and friends are all going to get the benefit of in the coming years, should we ever have to go in and have one of these procedures. One of the things I think is really interesting is you chose to build this company in Waterloo. And I'm really interested to hear what drove that decision versus saying, oh, we need to launch this in Silicon Valley, or we need to launch this in Boston, or some of the more traditional, kind of global startup cities.
Well, Waterloo is a great place to start any venture, to be honest. I'm obviously biased given that I'm from Waterloo and I've studied in UW, but over the years, Waterloo has started to have a really strong presence as well in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And we were fortunate and lucky enough to also be surrounded by university professors and people who have domain level of expertise in different areas. We're talking about developing sensors. We're talking about developing, at the time, implantable medical devices. And we also had the support of the right incubators and accelerators around us. And there's a lot of government-based funding as well that can support deep tech early stage ideas. At the time, we were still in school as well, so it wasn't an easy decision to move, obviously. And our parents would have probably killed us if we didn't finish our degrees. So that was something that we didn't really have much of a choice in. But at the same time, we were very, very lucky to be surrounded by the right organizations, the right partners to make sure that our startup can grow and thrive. One thing that maybe not a lot of people might be familiar with is the SHRED, or what is known as Scientific Research and Experimental Development tax credits that are available here for deep tech startups. This is a great incentive for any deep tech startup to start developing a product here locally in Canada. The government really does support early stage ideas and entrepreneurship, and we were very lucky and fortunate enough to be able to access some of these resources.
Oh, that's great, and I mean, it certainly is. It's part of your kind of personal journey that you're in Waterloo, but it sounds like it was an easy decision. Just the ecosystem around you and some of the resources that were going to be, really powerful in kind of the early stages of nerves development. And you mentioned the SHRED tax credits, which I mean are just kind of an unbelievable resource to early stage deep tech companies that really transform the economics of doing early stage startup work in a powerful way. I'm curious, beyond SHRED, or certainly happy to speak about your experience there, but what are some of the other major benefits you see to doing early stage technology work in Canada?
The talent over here is quite phenomenal. Honestly, Canada has some of the world's best universities. The students that graduate from these universities, as well as the graduate level students that are available through these universities, have really helped push our company forward. They've really propelled our development and moved us from where we first started. That was primarily, I guess, one of the main reasons why we also decided to stay locally. We've worked with maybe 4 or 5 different university professors in our early days to develop our technology and to get it to where it is today. Beyond that, there are many campus-linked accelerators that offer mentorship, that offer advice, people who have done this before and people who know what kind of pitfalls to avoid when starting your own venture. So surrounded by the right people, surrounded by the right resources, made for a very easy decision to stay and grow here.
Well, that's great to hear, and I'm curious on that regard. I mean, you just announced this past week a pretty exceptional, $2.5 million seed round, which will be really exciting for that next stage of growth. Kind of, how was that experience raising venture capital in the ecosystem, and how would you kind of rate your opportunity to do that from the local Canadian ecosystem?
I guess the great thing about being a startup entrepreneur or startup founder these days is that your access to funding is not really just focused on where you are. It's actually a global opportunity these days, and that's sort of what One Valley is trying to do as well. And we were fortunate and lucky enough as well through various events, one of which was the Entrepreneurship World Cup, to be exposed to a whole number of investors and partners that opened up the doors and floors for us. Um, we were able to raise funding from investors locally here in Canada, from the States, as well as from even in the Middle East and as far as Asia and China. And I think that's what's great about the entrepreneurship life these days, the global opportunity that you have. We do have local angels and investors, and VCs are also emerging in the space over here in Canada that are really opening up doors for Canadian startups to succeed. And the proximity as well to the US, to the Valley, makes also for a great opportunity for Canadian entrepreneurs to try to seek investments from abroad. But I feel like it's a global world that we're living in today when it comes to everything that we deal with, not just entrepreneurship. And that opens up a ton of doors for everyone. So starting from Canada is a great place, obviously, for the resources that you have at the early stage, but you're still capable of scaling and growing beyond the early stages.
No, makes a lot of sense. And you actually just mentioned kind of the increasing number of local venture investors and kind of the the steep learning curve that the Canadian VC industry is going through, which is really exciting. If you think back to 5 years ago, you were just getting started at Nerve. How has the Canadian startup ecosystem changed throughout that time, and what are you excited about going forward? What do you think's next?
It's definitely been evolving. So if I go back to when we first started, there were maybe a few campus-linked accelerators that were around. Over the last few years, we've started seeing a lot of them emerge and a lot of them pop up. And the way that I saw it is that each area within Ontario specifically, if I'm talking just about Ontario, sort of had its own area of expertise. And as more of these campus-linked accelerators started popping up, you started feeling that the corridor was being bridged between some of these different areas, and you're managing to bring expertise from the medical side, from the tech side, sort of bringing them all in one place. And that's what helped move us forward as well, and moved a lot of startups forward over the last while. It gave us access to more funding opportunities. It gave us access to more advisors and mentors. And that's one thing that I'm seeing sort of going to continue over the next few years, is bridging the gap between different areas of the country or in the province itself that can try to tie and connect the startup founders as well as those who have exited previously, and sort of bring them together on the same table to discuss potential pitfalls to avoid and how to grow as a startup. Over the next few years, obviously, we can still see that there's plenty of room for growth and development. When it comes to the innovation ecosystem and the innovation space, adopting new technologies, specifically if I'm talking from the medtech side, is a little bit of a struggle for some of us medical technology founders and entrepreneurs. And we've already started seeing conversations happening between innovators as well as adopters of some of those technologies to try to see how we can prevent or remove these obstacles from existing. So that's something that I'm really excited and looking forward to. The fact that these conversations are starting to happen will probably open up doors for future growth for some of our startups.
No, very interesting. And have you found, it sounds like the various stakeholders in the ecosystem are very responsive and kind of open-minded to,
Yep.
how that ecosystem is going to grow.
Definitely.
No, wonderful. Well, then maybe, a final question, that comes to mind is, as you think about other founders, whether they be in Canada, whether they be across the globe, what advice would you have for them when thinking about kind of where to build their team and their company and where to really get started?
As I said, we're living in a global era right now where access to talent and resources is pretty much at your fingertips these days. But maybe the one piece of advice that I would leave anyone with is to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people. Whether it's your direct team that you're working with on a day-to-day basis, or your advisors and mentors who have walked down this path before and who know how to help you and support you to make sure that you actually grow every step of the way. Make sure that you have the right partners to work with. People that you enjoy working with is a very important thing to have, especially that you're going to be seeing these people or working with them practically 15 hours a day. That's how the startup world works. So just make sure that you're enjoying who you're working with.
No, that's great advice. That's great advice. And so what's next for Nerve? You're at the clinical stage. Would love you to leave us with what we should expect to see from Nerve over the next couple of years.
Hopefully start commercializing our products and start seeing it being used in hospitals, particularly in the Middle East is where we're going first. And we're looking into Canada and the US shortly afterwards. So hopefully in the next couple of years, you'll see our product being used in hospitals. That's one thing we're really excited about it. It's a new phase, a new stage for a company that we've never experienced before. So that's the one thing that is really exciting everyone on the team these days.
Amazing. Well, Amer, thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. It's always great to hear the Nerve story and appreciate you, sharing some background on kind of the reality and the opportunity of the early stage Canadian ecosystem.
My pleasure, Alec. Thanks a lot for having me.
Well, perfect. It was a great conversation, and another big thank you to Amer for spending some time with us here today. Next, we've got some time with the head of the Toronto Business Development Center to really share in depth about the Startup Visa Program, which is an incredibly unique and valuable program that Canada has created to make it possible for founders from around the world to immigrate, launch their businesses, and equally importantly, access all of the resources that they need to be successful. So it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce Neha Ball, the CEO and president of the Toronto Business Development Center.
Thank you, Alec. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Very, very, very happy to be here and very excited to talk about the program as well. I think Amer gave a very good background on why Canada and what all support has he gained from this ecosystem as well. I'll go ahead and share my slides and we'll quickly go through it before we can take more questions on it as well. So yes, today we're talking about the Startup Visa Program, the very much talked about opportunity to be as a startup or a scale up in this ecosystem to access North American or US market as a whole. This is all we are, the startup destination, Toronto, fourth largest city in North America, very close to the biggest market that you want to access and scale in as well. Looking at just our background, Toronto Business Development Center is one of the first incubators established by the City of Toronto and Province of Ontario back in 1990. It's when people do not call their businesses startups. So we are a nonprofit organization. We've been funded by the city and the province from the start. Our mandate is with the program to attract international entrepreneurs to North America, to Canada, and to be based out of here to scale from here as well. So talking about a little more deeply on the Startup Visa Program, like I said, it's intended to attract international entrepreneurs, and there are 3 tracks in this program. There is a venture capital track, there is an angel investor group track, and then there is business incubators. So we fall under the business incubators. The other 2 they're also designated list of entities, and they have to commit to invest a certain amount of money in startups or scale-ups to invite them under the program. And successful applicants under this program basically get their Canadian immigration and they get their work permits and PRs to actually come and work on their companies. So this is the eligibility. This is very basic eligibility that you need to incorporate in Canada as well. And each applicant in the Canadian company, which is proposed, should own at least 10% voting rights. You should have control of IP and assets within the business. And obviously we do a due diligence report on the business to make sure that not just the business, but individuals are also eligible for immigration. So going forward, the biggest question is who can apply? Innovative businesses, anything that you're providing in terms of solution, products, services, addressing a significantly large market globally, is relevant to this market, is something we are looking for. Strong founding team, always looking for people who can make that happen. And if there is any kind of market validation that they've had in their home countries or in any other markets as well, that helps us build a better business case for what is the market appeal for North American and US market in this case. So we are making up a very, very bespoke program for international entrepreneurs because we're also sector agnostic, we're stage agnostic as well. Our program is pretty customized to what the business needs are. Our program is pretty customized to what the startup, the founder needs are as well. So through the SQB Incubation Program, TBDC provides a soft landing spot to help businesses commercialize and majorly expand in North America with all the business resources and the advisory support that we can provide. So under this program, we basically give them a 2 months pre-acceleration, which is even pre-landing of founders in Canada, and a 6 months acceleration program. We're a nonprofit and we're quasi-government as well. We as an entity don't take equity in companies, at least at this stage. We've made it a paid program, which becomes a cost recovery program for us. And we charge 30,000 Canadian dollars for a 6 months acceleration and a 2 months pre-acceleration program. We're able to process these applications more so in COVID at very high rates. We are taking anywhere between 4 to 5 weeks to take you through the screening process as a startup, and at the end of it, there is an acceptance in the incubation program, and also we give you a letter of support, which basically applies for your PR and work permit applications. So that seems our record. And Startup Visa Program has been a pilot program for 5 years before with the Government of Canada. It's been from 2013 to 18, and similar organizations have run this program. We have been one of those as well. And during that pilot phase, TBDC has processed 60% of all applications that have come to Canada for startups and scale-ups. During the last 1.5 years, it's also become, while it became a permanent program, we've approved around 90 startups from across the world, and we received over 1,000 applications, and our mandate for this fiscal year is 200 startups. And I'll talk more about what kind of startups do we have and from where in a bit. And this looks like our selection process. Like I said, we take anywhere between 4 to 5 weeks. The idea is to assess that there is enough business capital in the business to sustain a startup or a scale up for 12 to 18 months, because we believe that's at least the time it takes to access a new market as well. So we do go through internal review process and then take you to panel interviews with our advisors on the board, and then we do a letter of support for the founders. These are some of the due diligence documents, how they look like. Anything and everything about the business, about the parent company from your home country is something we look for. And basically, we don't share this with immigration. This is for only our due diligence. And when you file for your immigration files, all of this information has to be provided by the founders to the immigration. So what is the letter of support? This is one single document for up to 5 founders in a startup with their families to bring in their business to Canada and basically apply for their work permits to start with, which covers the waiting time for the PRs. There have been a lot of questions around the waiting time for the PRs as well. It's been very, very much delayed because this is also not a priority program right now, but we're looking at 12 to 14 months of PR timelines now, and also looking at 3 to 4 months of work permit processing times. this is our core program, and very excited to tell you that One Valley is our programming partner, and we give the pre-acceleration program as well as a 6 months acceleration program, all powered by One Valley, the advisors, the team, the platform, everything that they bring together. It's absolutely curated at One Valley's end as well, and we customize it more and more at our end to fit the businesses that we have. This is our basic offering. There are business services, there are partner services. A lot of it also involves a lot of settlement services here because they're new entrepreneurs and they're coming into a new country rather than just bringing their business in the country as well. So even from office space to even getting a dedicated program manager that basically designs your program for the month, and you get an event calendar and you get an advisory calendar, and you have regular check-ins with the TBDC team as well to see where you're going and what kind of help would you need. These are some of our program partnerships. These are all national partnerships. We do collaborate with incubators, accelerators, and other innovation corridors. Even what Amr talked about, the Waterloo corridor, Sci Innovation is in Markham here. Venture Lab has a hardware incubator that we work with. Communitech is great with fintech programming. So all of these are some national partners that we work with as well to bring maximum value with our programming as well. And our aim here is not to trap you into Toronto downtown. Let's say if you're an agri-tech company. If you're an agri-tech company, we'll move you and transition you to corridors where you can get best collaborative partners or client acquisitions that you're looking for, rather than just having a base in Toronto downtown for that matter. This is one of our bigger partnerships. It's been announced very recently, later last year. And Ontario Centre of Excellence, now called Ontario Centre of Innovation, partners with us on a provincial level, and our mandate is to transition new innovative businesses to innovation corridors around Ontario, and not just Toronto. And another big partnership that we've already announced during Collision this year, and we'll be doing a very soft launch on the 20th of May, is with City of Brampton. So City of Brampton, as another innovation district, looks at industrial solutions, advanced manufacturing, clean tech solutions, and cybersecurity companies. So this is an initiative between TBDC and City of Brampton. And the goal here is to empower the next generation of innovators in these industries to get their base in Brampton. And we're opening the Beehive, that is the innovation hub at Brampton, and TBDC programming is taking over, has been taken over there as well. So this is TBDC 2.0. We have more than one locations and more than one partners that we're wanting to move international entrepreneurs to. These are some of our approved startups for, 40% of our approved startups are from India. That's our priority market as well. But whatever you see here, we have startups from India, China, UK, US, Turkey, Iran, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Hong Kong, Russia. I think I'm missing some of them as well, but that's the diversity we have. We're also sector agnostic, so we have anything starting from food tech, fintech, clean tech, anything and everything that you can think about. This is all from my end. Happy to take questions. Happy to be connected at any level and tell you more about the program, or even assess your startup as well. Thank you, Alec.
Neha, thank you so much for that presentation. I'm still absorbing the incredible amount of information there, but that was so helpful in kind of setting the stage as to both the opportunity as well as what a founder should expect going into that process. For anyone who's watching, you can go and type in any questions in the Q&A section, and I'll surface those for Neha. But while that's happening, there were a couple questions I had that I wanted to get started with. And I think one of the things that really struck me when I first started learning about Startup Visa Program was that it's not just about Canada. And it's not just about, if you're a startup and you want to go, you want to launch in the Canadian market, It's more about, that as a landing pad and launch pad to the Americas and to, this entire kind of part of the world. Maybe, do you mind telling us a little bit more about how companies use Canada as kind of a powerful market access tool elsewhere?
Absolutely, and I think I'm very candid from that. I'm a startup junkie myself, so I'm on advisory board of a ton of startups back home as well. And the idea, like you said, is exactly giving them a soft landing, giving them a launching pad here. And I mean, one of the stories we always tell our entrepreneurs is, if you are, let's say, a startup from Hong Kong, or let's say a startup from Turkey or India, you walk into a New York VC's office and the first question is, where are you from? Because you're too far away. And people buy people. People don't buy anything else. And even when it comes to fundraising, it's that comfort that the investors have, that you are close by, and just for even all kinds of support, not just the money they can give you, right? So we've seen a lot of we've seen a lot of applications from US for international entrepreneurs. They want to be based out of Canada also, because that gives them a solid footprint on the ground. They're still accessing US market, and obviously all kinds of trade agreements with US and European markets also help them explore new markets coming from another country altogether. So yeah, that's my short answer to your very short question. But we've seen a lot of traction also because people are looking at scaling in US. And I say it very candidly, Canada is a very small country. And I'm not expecting you to come from a 1.3 billion people market to scale in a 37 million market. Sure, not. But be based out of here, access the capital, access the talent, and you're able to access that market very much more easily.
Yeah, no, it makes so much sense as a kind of strategic, opportunity and channel there. And I think, another thing that we've certainly seen is we've seen a lot of companies launch, especially like consumer facing products in Canada. And it's a market where you can control that launch a lot more. It's not quite as fragmented and large as the US, and you can refine, your product and your strategy in a market that's really similar to the US's. But a little bit safer, kind of play around in and experiment in. So it seems like it can be a great place for that early stage company.
Absolutely, and then this is one of the things that we give you a Xerox copy of your favorite customer, like a Xerox copy, but a more controlled environment, and where you can get a lot of support, but with all kinds of innovation programs that the government runs, and all kinds of ecosystem support as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I think any US founder instantly gets incredibly jealous when they learn about the SHRED, tax credit and some of the government support that exists there, because it really just changes the equation of financing your company so much, compared to in the US where you have a lot of kind of heavy lifting you have to do. Especially from the governmental and regulatory side.
Yeah, so. I mean, and even on the tax credits, right? There's a lot of leverage, like under even this program. If you're bringing, as a founder, you're bringing your company to Canada, up to $500,000 of profit is not taxed, and there's more. So, for example, if you're a startup coming from another country, and mostly CTOs are not founders, mostly sales heads are not founders. So there are so many other programs, including the global talent stream, where you can get these people to join you here and build a team from here for this market as well. So not just the financing part of it, but a lot of and talent is phenomenal. Like all kinds of international talent also lands here, including what is homegrown for us, including the Waterloo and UFTs and on all of that.
No, that's great to hear. One of the items you mentioned, and you were kind of getting to the nuance of this, and I know this would be one of the kind of biggest questions I would have as a founder is, I've started my business elsewhere. I have a team there, there's operations going on. do I need to uproot everything, move the full team, come launch to Canada, or how do I take advantage of this? Given that I already have a business going.
So I think that'll be probably a personal story, because I'm Indian and our priority market is India, and that's been our messaging. We're not telling you to just wrap up everything and come to Canada. The idea is, for, let's say, for Indian market, what we tell them is, we want to enable Indian startups to be in North America. Don't uproot. There's no way we're wanting to uproot you from there, because you have market validation there. You did all your development there as well. The idea of the program is to expand both ways. If Canada is looking at you bringing your business to Canada and creating jobs and creating, contributing to the innovation ecosystem, so will happen back home. And most of the times when I'm talking about these startups under the startup visa program, let's say there are 3 founders. Most of the times, 1 or 2 founder want to go to the valley and test the waters and do all of that, right? So it's similar for this program as well. We don't want you to leave a market. We want you to expand into another market.
No, I think that's incredibly helpful for founders to understand. And as Amr was saying earlier, we're in a global market, and if you're not thinking about how you're strategically getting value from everywhere, you're missing a pretty big opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think that's what this program helps a lot, right? So an incubator and accelerator like us gives you a one-stop shop of services, literally starting from where do you open your corporate account in, what lawyers do you use for immigration, to where to get best beer in town, everything in one package. So it really helps. And I think even I'm very, I'd not say I'm very old in the Canadian ecosystem as well, but being around and literally Canadian startup ecosystem, or specifically Toronto startup ecosystem, is very building up. Nobody's trying to pull you down, rather than if you're doing something similar, they're entrepreneurs, the ecosystem is so much more happier to collaborate and build it up. So that's probably one difference we've seen.
No, that's great. I think it's one of the really exciting things about those emerging ecosystems that are growing so quickly is there's a lot more collaboration than competition. When compared to some places in Silicon Valley and New York and things like that. One thing I'm really interested in is, when should founders think they're kind of at the right stage for this? And how does it differ maybe between a deep tech science company versus, other companies that, like a software company that might be launched and operating and kind of running really quickly?
So very good question. We always get this because it's a very subjective answer for us as well. And that answer comes from when we say what we look at is market validation, right? So market validation for us comes in various forms. One is recurring revenues. One is you have customers, you have recurring revenues, and we literally have companies which are pre-revenue starting from 100K ARR to 10 million in ARR. Right. So that's the length and breadth of what validation do we look for. And like you said, if they're deep tech companies, biotech, life sciences, where they don't really make revenue starting, early on and probably 4 or 5 years down the line, there our market validation that we look for is, do they have institutional investments, or they're collaborating with universities to do their R&D? Like Amr said, they're working with the University of Waterloo. They got so much support from there. They raised a couple of grants as well, and they work with professors. So that's validation. We want to see that the groundwork is still done. Even other pre-revenue companies that we have are, I'd say, they had IP to commercialize. So that means there's already skin in the game. So the right stage to do that is, if this is to be commercialized definitely in a US market or Canadian market or North American market, it's pretty good, but we need to see that groundwork. And for usual B2B SaaS startups, B2C startups, it's always better to have that initial validation from an actual customer, which makes us more confident as well. And we're still going back by those numbers, right? 1 out of 20 is going to survive, and we'll take the credit that it became a unicorn. One of the unicorns from Canada, which is the Flyboard, is a startup visa client from Waterloo, and that's a very good example of what immigrant entrepreneurs or immigrants are doing in Canada as well, and they don't feel like immigrants. They're home. So I'd say the right stage is when there is enough business capital and you've figured out that this is a relevant product to figure out your go to market in this market. That's the right stage.
Even in these accidentally muted. Amazing, and it's incredible to hear that Apply Board was a startup visa program. I had no idea that was the case, and again, it just speaks to the power of combining incredible founders with these rapidly growing startup ecosystems and markets. So that's amazing to hear. I have one final transactional question. I see we've got a decent number of founders in the attendee room, so please feel free, if you have any questions, go down to Q&A at the bottom. Feel free to throw them out, and Neha would love to answer them. Beyond that, though, just transactionally, do companies need to set up a Canadian entity to participate in this, and what does that look like?
Yes. So the mandate under the program is that you also have to set up a Canadian entity, which let's say you're from Turkey or India or wherever, right? So the mandate is that it could be more. It's a separate entity that you have to set up. Now you can set it up internally as a wholly owned subsidiary of the Indian or the Singapore entity, wherever you're working from as well. But that's the mandate. It's still proposed, it's intention to incorporate, but you have to eventually incorporate it. So within the screening process, it's just intention to incorporate.
No, makes sense. And then we've got a couple questions coming in from founders here. John from Privacy Wall asked, are there benefits for US companies doing this? And I know that's a pitch you're ready to give.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, one of the things is that, like I said, 20% of our applications are coming from US, mostly from international entrepreneurs who are looking at, getting permanent residency and having that foot on the ground and having that personal status as well, which gives you access to a lot more infrastructure. But even US companies, even American founders are looking at Toronto or Canada for that matter, because of the talent. Like in the US, that talent is pretty tapped out. Like if you're looking at hiring a sales head in the US, just given our currency, we give you a 30% discount right away. So that's one part of it anyway. And also being a small ecosystem, it's easy to accidentally sell in Canada. And then obviously entities like us, kind of provide that marketing and business development, networks where you will eventually get there. And our aim is that every company that comes with us through that 6 months acceleration program either gets a round of funding or gets the first customer from here. Like most of them already have that kind of traction from US market. If not a couple of initial customers, a couple of Canadian customers, and they're looking at more and more collaborations. But yeah, even for US founders, they more look at like a soft landing hub for themselves. They might not be interested in immigration, and that's just a byproduct of the program. But yeah, just setting up those tech transfer offices, building teams here, that's very, very that's something very, very attractive for American companies.
No, thank you, Neha. We have another question from Lokesh about whether you provide funding and what are the fees, or do you take equity associated with this?
So we do not provide funding. We are an accelerator. So we do open our network of angels and VCs when we take you through the program as well if you're fundraising. So we provide that network. We do not ourselves provide funding, but we do not take equity in the program as well. We've made it a paid program, and that's where the whole market validation comes from as well. We want to see that there's enough business capital. So we don't take equity in the program from companies, but we made it a paid program, and we charge 30,000 Canadian dollars for a 6 months acceleration and a 2 months pre-acceleration program. And this $30,000 basically comes in, half of it comes in when you end your screening process and you sign an incubation agreement with us. And the rest of it, when you eventually land and you start the program, the rest of it comes then.
No, very helpful. Thank you, Neha. We have maybe 4 minutes left. If there are any final questions from the group, we're happy to get those answered. We'll see if anything comes in the last minute, but any parting words that you'd like to leave the founders with, or if they want to follow up and get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
So yeah, one of the questions my pipeline team also always asks is, what is that one thing that you would tell if a founder is applying for this program? And that'll be market research. Do your research. Where do you stand in this ecosystem? I mean, you can still build another Uber. We want it to be still different, better, cheaper, or more elegant, or whatever that is. But do your market research. That gives us more confidence that you have done your work on the research. If you don't do it, we will do it. And if we don't find it fit, then it'll go down the rabbit hole. So basically that market research, that competition, that competitive analysis is very, very key for us.
No, makes sense. And you know, good advice to founders that aren't applying to the Canadian Startup Visa program for sure, but certainly ones that are. Well, again, thank you, Neha. I just want to really appreciate you spending time with us today, sharing information about this program. I think I know from my personal perspective and from One Valley's more broadly, we've been so excited about the growth and evolution of the ecosystem over the past couple of years. We've started investing in Canadian domiciled and headquartered companies. We're seeing just kind of talent come from so many different areas. So, we can't wait to see what comes next, both out of Canada more broadly, but certainly the TBDC ecosystem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Very, very happy to be here.
Well, wonderful. And with that, that brings to an end our conversation today. Why incorporating in Canada could be the right fit for your startup. Really appreciate founders across the One Valley community joining us today. Want to really quickly flag for you that we have coming up in about 2.5 weeks, our Founder Connect partnership with Freshworks, which is a real incredible deep dive on sales, marketing, customer support, an incredible resource for any founders that are looking to level up in that area. So, check out the event, RSVP today, and hopefully we'll see you there on May 26th. And with that, thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.